Hey there YouTube lovers, my name is BB8 and today I am going to review my favourite Pokemon games, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, as well as the remakes Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. You are probably wondering, BB8, isn't this the most random time to review a random Pokemon game? Well, considering that Hoenn is my favourite in the whole franchise, and it's just been the 10th anniversary of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I may as well finally give the two games the review treatment to give people a brief idea on why the Hoenn region is so close to my heart. Because if you don't know me already, I am a Pokemon fan, like a big Pokemon fan. And I bet some of you are surprised to know that not one Pokemon game has made the Certified Gold Club yet. And I thought, considering that Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are my favourites, I thought I'd revisit Ruby and Sapphire as well, just to see if they are worthy of being the first Certified Gold Pokemon games. And now back to it. You're all here for one answer. What makes Hoenn so special to me? You're about to find out. So, without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? For the gameplay, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire played out a lot like the other two generations, with an improvement in graphics. The new features introduced in Ruby and Sapphire included double battles, which did remain in Pokemon games after it, and another feature I really loved in Ruby and Sapphire was abilities, which added unique moves to individual Pokemon to use that other Pokemon can't, such as Tyranitar's Sandstream ability. However, the core gameplay hasn't changed from past generations, since it still relies on catching, battling, and trading Pokemon with others. The Pokeblocks, while not used outside of Generation 3, were mainly used for Pokemon contests, and I feel like this was the most underrated feature of the whole game in my opinion, and I wish they did bring it back for later generations. But Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, on the other hand, introduced some features from newer Pokemon games, such as Mega Pokemon, which are brought over from X and Y, which probably makes Oras the best Pokemon remake in my opinion, and a whole lot of quality of life improvements have been made in here as well. And while HM reliance wasn't an issue for me in Ruby and Sapphire because it adds strategy to how the player lays out their team, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire introduces the soaring feature, which isn't unlocked until you catch Latios or Latias, depending on your version of the game. While the remakes were the most respectful to the originals in the whole Pokemon franchise, unlike a certain Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which was too faithful, it did make a few tweaks to the story, like Mega Evolutions being integrated into Groudon and Kyogre's lore. For the graphics, for the first time in the Pokemon franchise, Ruby and Sapphire had a major upgrade from Generations 1 and 2, with full-coloured environments and effort put into the sprite work. And while Ruby and Sapphire didn't have sprite animations, Emerald, the third version, made up for that. The Hoenn region probably has some of the best world building in a Pokemon game, not just in lore, but in visuals as well, since we have volcanoes, deserts, oceans, an entire town in a forest, and Hoenn felt the most lively compared to other regions. For a Game Boy Advance game, the amount of detail is impressive. But Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, on the other hand, brought up the visuals a notch to full 3D, similar to Pokemon X and Y. Hoenn already looked lively on the Game Boy Advance, but the environments becoming more dynamic, such as the homes of Groudon and Kyogre being more vibrant than in the original game, and while Pokemon has never had anime-like character animations, I still appreciate the effort that was put into the unique character animations, even for Pokemon that can learn the same move as another. And the art style was criticized by many for being too simplistic, but for a 3DS game, I didn't mind. It definitely looked better than Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl visually. For the characters in Ruby and Sapphire probably have the most life in a Pokemon game, considering that Scarlet and Violet felt lifeless with its human characters. Ruby and Sapphire probably has the best mix. One thing I mainly enjoyed about older Pokemon games, more than modern ones, is that your rival was more dynamic, with the rival being male or female depending on who you picked, and other characters like Steven, the champion who shows confidence and strength. Team Magma and Team Aqua probably have to be my favourite evil team in the whole Pokemon franchise, because they are more dynamic than the rest of the Pokemon series, with the evil team being dependent on your version of the game. And the remakes did a great job at fleshing out the characters a bit further, and Zinnia, who was introduced for the Delta episode, probably has to be the best human character in a Pokemon game. I'm not joking when I say that. Her lore and deep connection to Rayquaza's lore, and she added depth and gave a reason to keep playing after defeating the Elite Four. And I would probably have to say she is the best written human character in the whole Pokemon franchise. And I literally do not care what the rest of the internet has to say. For the new Pokemon, Generation 3, to me, probably has some of the best Pokemon designs in the whole franchise. I know a lot of people are going to say that about Kanto, but for me, Hoenn probably has my favourite Pokemon designs in the whole series, such as Trico, Torchic, and Mudkip, who adapt very well into the region's atmosphere. Hoenn probably had the most diverse and creative roster of new Pokemon in the whole franchise, and the addition of Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza all stand out for me as high points for legendaries. And while the remakes didn't add any new Pokemon to the decks, apart from legendaries, the Mega Evolutions expanded on pre-existing Pokemon, bringing new and amazing designs to these Pokemon while also making their new moves useful in combat as well. And I feel like Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire has probably had the best utilization of Mega Evolutions so far, because of the new lore written in for Groudon and Kyogre, especially with their primal forms. For the story of Ruby and Sapphire mainly focuses on the rivalry of the two evil teams, Team Magma and Team Aqua, who both have their own unique goals. Team Magma has a goal to use Groudon to expand the land, and Team Aqua has a goal to use Kyogre to expand the seas, depending on the version of the game that you have chosen. Even though the generation after has the most important story in the Pokemon franchise, Ruby and Sapphire probably has the best usage of mythology in a Pokemon game, especially with Groudon and Kyogre. The remakes expand on the story a bit further by tweaking Groudon and Kyogre's lore to include their primal forms, but besides the lore expansion, the Delta episode is added in, which mainly connects with Zinnia and her lore with Rayquaza, while also including Deoxys, which does do a great job at exploring the Hoenn's mythology a bit further. And while some people felt that these story expansions weren't needed, we need more things like this in Pokemon remakes, because this definitely adds depth to what is already the greatest region, in my opinion, in the whole Pokemon franchise. Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire were definitely groundbreaking for the Game Boy Advance by introducing mechanics and designs that impacted me as a Pokemon fan in a good way. And I can probably say that Hoenn is the only flawless Pokemon region, and that is why it stands out to me as the franchise's best. And no, I do not have a Hoenn bias. These games do have a big place in my heart as a Pokemon fan, and the remakes did the best job at modernizing a Pokemon region by respecting the originals very well, by making a few tweaks to the region itself. And while the 3DS era has been a bit rough for Pokemon, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire was probably the only hitter for me from the 3DS era. And I know it may sound rigged to give them this perk, but since Hoenn has a soft spot for me as a Pokemon fan, I officially give both Ruby and Sapphire from 2002, as well as the remakes Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire from 2014, as the first ever Pokemon games to ever earn the certified gold perk. And overall, I give Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire a 10 out of 10, and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire get a 10 out of 10 as well. While they may not be certified gold for a lot of people's hearts, both Pokemon games have a special place in my heart, not just as nostalgia for when I first became a Pokemon fan, but they are the best in terms of gameplay, new Pokemon designs, human characters, and story, which is probably why, unless Hoenn gets revisited again, these may be the only Pokemon games to ever make the certified gold club. And before anyone asks, I didn't just drop 5 games into the certified gold club out of nowhere. Each set of game counts as one, so only 22 games exist in the certified gold club, not 25. So guys, what did you think of my review of Ruby and Sapphire, as well as their remakes Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire? And next week on BB8 House Reviews, it's actually a request that I got from my review request form, and that is the Resident Evil 2 remake from 2019. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and turn your notification bell on so you don't miss another video like this one in the future. And I will see you all in a future video. BB8 out.